not going to be here.
And Lenny.
Okay.
Okay, welcome everybody. We'll wait on a few things until Robin comes, so we have a quorum for anything we're gonna vote on. And just as a reminder, we're going into non-public at the end of the meeting, and I hope we could do that around 6:20, 6:25. So move things along. So we'll do the minutes later when we have a quorum. So just a few updates. Sean, why don't you go first with that?
Sure. On the Pierce Island, the Debari, the piece is probably finished by now. It was very close to being finished. And they need to add their layers of paint. You might recall they were originally going to bring it up in pieces, but they put it all together. So I think we talked about at the last meeting, it's going to require a lowboy flatbed to come onto Pierce Island. The good news is Korn was on a call with Chris and I in a Zoom with the person who's going to install it. They do not need a crane. We're going to be able to get it to the location, hopefully without too much damage to the grass. They understand they are going to dig the hole, pour the concrete, and place it exactly where it needs to be. That's not going to fall to the city. So that's the update on Debari. Tentatively, the group talked about a mid-July timeframe, but that is totally flexible. And we talked about during the week, not on weekends, because it's pretty high season for us on Pierce Island.
Yeah, so we're getting there. But we'll start planning official opening in the fall.
Okay.
If some of you might have looked at the Sankofa tiles, I think they look pretty good. They're repaired, so that's the first part of the African Burying Ground to be renovated, but take a look at it. I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah, I happened to walk by it yesterday and it looks great. It's so nice to see all intact again.
The invite to the Albacron party, you all received, and I will go at least because I want to talk them into making sure that we can do parking there. I've been told that's kind of my role to try to for the park so that they can open up. They have a new executive director. We're hoping for a good outcome. Final version of the temporary art guidelines you have. I don't know if anybody has any comments on those. I think Mara, did you?
Yeah, that's the highlight proposal of the changes that I didn't write to you about what you thought about them, but I think that actually it's even more focused than what we can.
Why don't you tell us?
So why don't I tell you what you said?
Mara, you might want to get a little closer to the microphone.
Okay. Or I'll get it a little closer to me. Okay, so the first point is, as it was said. The second is the date for deinstallation must be submitted, and the budget for temporary art must include deinstallation costs. Okay, so then the third point now is Park will have the authority and responsibility to manage and enforce the designated deinstallation date. Then the next one is as was said. And then the last one is temporary art must be maintained by the sponsors or responsible party throughout the public display period. The sponsor or responsible party are responsible for the deinstallation. And I think that, what we said was kind of like what we reflected the conversation at the meeting, but I think this makes it even more precise and more specific. And I felt that, my concern, and I felt other people too, wanted to really make sure that we were clear that this was temporary art and that it wasn't just like a backdoor for for exhibits to get into to the public. Yeah. So I think that if this is really a great, it just makes it more, the language even precise.
I just, sorry, I'm late.
Because I think it doesn't actually change any of the language.
No,
I
no.
think we can accept we can accept the changes, unless anybody has anything that actually changes the intent.
Sort of grouped it a little differently.
Yeah, well, I think you focused it in a much more clear way.
So, if that's okay with everybody, then, Mara, you and Jen can get that.
Oh,
to-
we can send it out
Send-
again. to-
Well, and
well,
send it
just
to
to
Sean,
Sean.
so it gets
Okay.
posted, so we can understand. You also have there as a handout, something for a discussion, our June meeting. And those are summary of our considerations and questions to be settled for the rotating art exhibit. So please add to that. Think about what else we have to get settled before we can move for that. One other announcement, and the school people really haven't made progress, and so I think they want us to pick up. They have ideas and ideas from students. They haven't been able to take the concept further than that to get artists to respond to what they're interested in. I've asked to receive the information about what they want, what they've decided as a faculty and as students, and the artists that they've contacted, so that we can pick it up from here and do a limited call for artists. And then one more thing about the Von Mall, and that's the Ferry House sculpture location. And
Is that the first?
yes, and Mary,
No. it's not.
Mary is on to show us the 4 places that came out of the discussion that they are suggesting.
Did you send them?
I sent it.
Here it is. Here it is.
Ferry
Right.
House, sorry. And Mary, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Why don't you just tell us about the 4? And our goal is to recommend 1 or more towns.
Sure. Very good. And just in way of introduction, it's me this evening. Deborah had another commitment. So yes, thank you for sharing the PowerPoint that I sent earlier. We can go to the next slide or picture. Deborah and I were able to take the actual sculpture with us and place it in a couple of locations within the South End. So the first one was at the South Meeting House, as you can see, directly, which is located on the corner of Marcy Street and Meeting House Hill Road. We tried this one location up off of the sidewalk. It looked really great there. It provided a little bit of height and elevated it to sort of eye level, which was great. It really created a focal point on that corner. It kind of nestled in the current landscape, which provided a nice backdrop for it as well. And, you know, again, it's within the South End neighborhood. The disadvantages would be, among the disadvantages would be, it's quite exposed there. You can see that's me on the third picture. And it's kind of exposed there to curious hands and potential climbing. So visually it looked really great, but I don't know, may not be the best location, but you guys can consider that. If we go to the next slide, we did try, and we loved your suggestion of that small space on the corner of Marcy and Gardiner Streets. I think some of the generous neighbors have taken it upon themselves to do some plantings there, landscaping, and we were able to very gingerly place the sculpture within that space. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that far back, but we didn't want to disturb the tulips and things that were there currently. So we noted that that actually was a real winner. It has a small fencing border on it already. I think people or children or folks or even animals would be discouraged from really entering that space because of both the fence and the plantings. And I think the sculpture would eventually maybe be sort of shielded or sort of nestled in under that tree as it grows. But again, as I said, it could be brought forward. Another advantage would be that, with the fencing, it would be protected, we think, from snow and things like that during the winter months. It's again within the South End neighborhood. And we didn't really see any disadvantages for that location. And we were mindful of trying to choose a location that, relates to both the sponsor of the piece and the Fairy House event. So that was kind of a great option as well. Third option was, of course, at Prescott Park. Deborah and I did spend quite a while walking, the whole grounds from basically sort of the bridge side over to Mechanic Street. And a lot of the spots were rather exposed again. And we kind of came upon this spot, which is sort of backing up against that brick building there is the Players Ring Theater. So again, very relatable to both the sponsor and the event. Again, it's protected within a mature planting area already. Let's see if, and it really created sort of optimal exposure to the many visitors to Prescott Park. And again, in proximity to the location of the annual event. Not many cons there. And fourth and finally, it was suggested that we should check out Haven Park as well. That's a park located on Pleasant Street, which also is adjacent to where part of the annual event takes place. This location perhaps was less advantageous. There, it wasn't really, this is a one spot that seemed a potential possibility, but again, it's sort of exposed on all four sides. And I know that a lot of neighbors like to bring their dogs over to Haven Park, and I feel like, unless there was some kind of maybe fencing or something like that placed around this area, it might, the sculpture itself might be disturbed by excited children and pets. So that's kind of what we talked about. And I just wanted to add that Deborah and I did walk the grounds, both sort of Fortree Island and over to Pierce Island as well, but didn't really identify like I thought or hoped that we would. a really good spot for this particular piece. So, is there
thank-
any, sorry, excuse me, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Mary, tell.
No, I was just gonna say, if, did you guys have any questions?
I do. Yes, Mara.
So I guess I can see in your drawing, there is a base.
Yes, this would definitely need a base of some kind. I think the details of this particular rendering show like a concrete base or something. We're really hoping kind of for a more organically shaped piece of granite or something like that. But I think we wanted to include these details just to give you guys an idea of what we're thinking. In other words, to raise the wooden sculpture off of whatever the base is going to be to minimize contact with water, and it's just going to be hopefully something simple to just sort of act so the sculpture is the thing that shines. We really would like to include an engraved plate of some kind to acknowledge what the piece is, its significance, as well as the sponsor.
Well, thank you guys for doing that based on our list that we brainstormed before. So, and I'm going to infer that the two places that seem that you all are favoring are the Marcy and Gardner little triangle, and then maybe Prescott Park. Is that fair to say?
It seemed to us, being there and getting a sense of the space. I think so, kind of, but we're of course deferring to you. We are just thrilled that you're considering having this be a part of our neighborhood. So yeah, I think it's up to you guys. And I don't know, there's pros and cons, I guess, for each one. But yeah, that sweet little corner on Marcy and Gardner was just really cute.
Yeah, I went down to the Marcy and Gardner and I agree. It's just such a sweet spot.
Yeah.
And maybe this isn't a bad thing, but there are no sidewalks, and if children want to go and get close to it, they couldn't. Maybe that's okay.
Right.
But-
Is there not a sidewalk on that side of Marcy, on the north side of Marcy?
Across the street, right? Is it-
Well, no, it's.
Is there a sidewalk?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there is.
There is.
Then I missed it right
there.
Yeah, that's okay. It's just so nice, it's you can get a vantage point from basically three sides, which is nice for the sculpture, which is, Alex did a wonderful job of putting detail all the way around it. Yet it's, again, protected from curious hands and feet and pets and things like that with that little piece of fencing.
If I could just jump in, Mary, just to confirm that that's city property or private property?
Well,
I just asked that question to Nancy.
Corin, we added that because Corin Hallwell brought it to our attention as city property.
Oh, but the new neighbors that bought that house have been taking care of that
Yes.
spot.
Private property. On the tax map, shows it's private property.
If you look at the tag, if you look at the tax-
Uh-oh.
well, you'll have to talk to Corin.
Well, he's misunderstanding, he's looking at it and seeing a dashed line which shows the fence. I think he misinterpreted that.
Because it's an adopt-a spot.
You can do it.
Oh.
It's private. It's
So-
the tax, maybe the tax map's wrong.
Well, we'll have to.
Well, maybe that answers the question for us. Anyway, but because we actually at the last meeting had not considered or wasn't aware of this, but were told by you guys that it was owned by the city, but, clearly someone has invested time and money in beautifying it. So if that becomes not an option,
Well,
um,
I'm not sure it's not an option.
okay,
I would strongly discourage us from putting something that would be delightful for children next to a busy road. I would just discourage us from doing that.
Mhm.
Hands down, bar none, not next to a road.
it is. And everyone knows that Marcy is so tight and busy there, and it's kind of at the crest of that hill, which is sometimes difficult
If,
to.
if we could put it in a park in front of a bunch of grass, that's a no-brainer.
What
Mm.
do people think about the Prescott Park?
I
place?
like it.
That's great.
Kind of like it.
I originally wasn't thinking Prescott Park would be the best location because there's so much there, but
Right.
the site really works nicely.
It's good.
It really does. It's, there's where we took that photo on the left, there's a beautiful brick walkway that leads into that beautiful part of the garden that, where those incredible crabapple trees are. And it just relates, we felt, so well to our site partners. We partner with the Players Ring as well as a Gundalo. The Gundalo offices are right across the street. It is, I think all of those beautiful mature plantings would discourage people from actually trying to walk into the planting beds. So yeah, that was a beautiful option as well.
It sounds like people feel that that's the spot to recommend, yes?
Yes.
Well, we will, defer obviously to you guys if you want to discuss it some more and let us
Good.
know.
It seems like there's consensus about that, Mary, so that's what
Okay.
but we're recommending, so we'll recommend to the city council. And you might want to have explored a little bit more about what you're planning for the foundation
Sure.
before it goes to council, so that they can see what the finished product will be.
Excellent, thank you. And could you please tell me when that would be, like, what would be a
The next council meeting,
June 9th, or
June
wait,
ninth?
is that right? June 9th. June 9th. So the deadline is the 4th, I believe.
the deadline to, if you want it on the next meeting, we need it the Wednesday before June 9th to go to the council.
So
Got it, but
That's too early. It would be
23rd.
the 23rd.
Yes.
Council meeting is the 23rd, so it would be the Wednesday before the 23rd. So if you wanted this to go to the council in June, those would be your two options.
okay, so June, please tell me again. I'm sorry, I got confused with all those dates. Because I understand, people are required to, there's a deadline for submission, and then the actual meeting takes place at a later date. So again, please, what is the submission deadline?
Two council meetings are on the June 9th and the 23rd.
Got
So
it.
submission is the Wednesday prior to that.
Wednesday, the 4th or Wednesday, 18th.
Thank you so much. Got it. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying. I could look it up, but excellent.
Why don't you email me which one you think you want to be ready for?
Will do. I'll get back with Deborah. She had, I think her grandson had a real cute little music recital today or something tonight. So we'll get together tomorrow and figure it out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mary.
Have a great evening. Thank you all.
Okay, and now, Sean, do you want to introduce the next
Oh,
topic
our
and
guests.
come up to our
Right. So the team is here to speak about the Vaughn Mall and to speak about what is planned for the streetscape efforts, which will be next spring, right, Dave? That hasn't changed? Vaughn Mall.
Hi,
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Dave, the closest from Public Works. For those of you who don't. most, Peter Rice is here, the director, of course. Dan Rochette's our engineer for the Vaughn Mall. And Terrence is our landscape architect, and Terrence we trust. So we've had a couple of meetings. And I think Terrence has some smashing ideas. So we want to run some stuff by you. One of the kind of the themes is we don't want to over program the Vaughn Mall so that we can adjust, because as I like to say, the only thing constant in Portsmouth is change. So if you over program the space and you put too much hardscape in, it's hard to adjust and make changes. So that's idea one. Idea two is we really want to have multiple different spots where other artists can bring art and put different pieces in as the seasons change and as tastes change. So what we're really doing is we're asking Terrence to provide a backdrop and a canvas for a bunch of other artists to then come in and make changes as time goes by. So that was kind of the direction that we gave Terrence, and I think he's got some great ideas. We just want to run some stuff by you. And keep in mind, because this is kind of like an open-ended thing where we're really just kind of trying to create a canvas, that we're not really focusing necessarily on art today, but we're focusing on some really nice things that I think he's incorporated that I think are going to be great. And then kind of some ideas of where we could put things in the future, and we can put things in different spots. And I think one of the, knowing I've been living here now for 35 years, and one of the things that's kind of like a common theme of the Vaughn Mall is we keep trying to attract people into the Vaughn Mall and we keep failing. So, I built that stage back when I was just starting here, and it was a good idea, but it wasn't quite enough. So one of the themes that we want to bring is we want to bring a bunch of lighting in there. We want to really draw the eye. We have some ideas for some pavers that we think will attract people. So one of the other thing about the Vaughn Mall is it's really a one-sided street. It's kind of like Daniel Street with the Federal Building on one side and then everything else on the other. The Vaughn Mall is kind of the same thing, because even though we have some new life in the Cabot Furniture Building, but you really, the restaurant, and I forget the name of the restaurant, but the restaurant that's in the Worth Building is really focused on the street. So unless they're having outdoor dining, there's not really a lot going on that side of the street. So Terrence is trying to balance these things and trying to create life on both sides and trying to draw life from the music hall area all the way through to Portwalk Place. So, did I set up okay?
That's great. Yeah.
okay.
So-
And I'm here to temper expectations.
Yeah.
We all want to do big projects. We love, good materials, stuff like that, but budgets are reality. So we
Yeah.
need to, and as Dave said, we're creating a palette. We're creating something for opportunity. So we may, do interim steps before we implement the final design. The immediate issue is utilities. We have collapsing sewer in there, so we need to get in there and deal with that. So that's our immediate concern. The restoration we're at ground floor right now, and that's why we're coming to you early on before we sink a lot of time and effort into it to get your feedback and get some input.
Yeah, so let's just talk about schedule. So, what we're planning is a utility project starting September 1st. So first and foremost, September 1st, so September, October, November, till hopefully no later than December 15th, because I really don't want to be out there any later than that. Basically because Christmas shopping and everything else that comes with it. But, so in that first phase, we'll replace the collapsing sewer line. We'll replace the water main that didn't get replaced in 1972 when they put the Vaughn Mall in. And we're going to make the drain line has to be bigger for the modern storms that we have. So we have to replace basically all of our city-owned utilities. The gas line's already been
Will you take
replaced.
out- Are you taking out all the trees? Do you have? to
We're
get rid
taking
of
out the trees that are in the center planter.
Okay.
The trees that are over by the stage all stay, and there's provisions in the contract to protect them. So there's gonna be air spading and there's all kinds of things, so we're not gonna just dig through the roots and hope the trees are gonna survive. We're actually gonna burrow under the root masses. There's a very nice tree, also that Corin wanted to protect, that's right at the head of the Vaughn Mall on Congress Street. So we're actively protecting that tree as well. So I'm not gonna talk about utilities, but the utility design is to basically go around everything. So that's kind of the plan. And then in December, when we're done for the year, we're gonna pave the Vaughn Mall, just so it's walkable and we'll get by. And then just like every other project that we do, we're gonna let the ground kind of heal because we're gonna actively dig all kinds of holes in there. We're gonna let settlement happen, do its thing. And we were looking at doing the hardscape. We haven't really decided whether we're gonna do that the following spring or if we're gonna wait until the following fall. So it might be a year before we put kind of like Terrence's plan into action. So we don't really have a timeline for this part of it. We knew that it was far enough back that's why the construction bid is already out to bid. But we knew that this had to follow up and this was going to take some discussion time. But we have we think about a year before we activate. So that's the schedule.
It's good because we also have talked about some plans for the Vaughn Mall.
Okay.
That we can hopefully integrate.
Okay. I'm gonna get out.
So Dan is the one designing all the utilities that Dave just spoke about, that's going to be repaired in September. Oh, so they're out of, did you have the bubble diagram?
The bubble diagram.
I think so there's a package, there's a lot of separate drawings here. There's a bubble diagram, there's paving diagrams, there's a site plan, there's some hand-drawn sketches of an element that I'm proposing, and then there's an art idea that's projections on a wall. But you know what you're not seeing tonight is this large idea package I had where it had, furniture, it had paving, had lighting, it had glassworks, it had all these idea things that, that happen around the world that I harvested or that these guys saw. So this is kind of this is the step after that.
Thank you.
So basically you have three elements. You have the wall, it's floor, ceiling and wall. And I'm proposing, so you can see the golden areas are retail opportunities. There's some new green trees on the west side of the mall. There's one canopy tree that's proposed. It's
Give us an
Orientation.
Give us oriented first.
Yes.
Arch and a Mexican restaurant.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the golden areas on the east side, on the top of the page, are kind of retail opportunities that people, basically it's a kind of an existing situation now. That's where people kind of flow out of their stores and locate whatever they're trying to sell. So that's the wall side that David spoke about. And then it, obviously, that it's really open to the Worth parking lot, which I think is a real problem for pedestrian space to be confronted with that abruptness of vehicles right there visually and auditorily. So I'm proposing, because we're losing all the large oaks on the wall side of this, all those big oaks are coming out. That's where the water line, no, what line is over there?
All of them,
All of them,
Yeah.
all of them.
doesn't matter.
So, David in the city has correctly preserved the really big honey locusts that abut the parking lot and the crab apples there. And so when I'm proposing a new layer of plant materials on that same side. The purple area is the stage. And that stays. And then I had also proposed shade fabrics, but it's now evolved into more permanent metal pergola sculptures to provide shade. They're on the stage and to the left and right of the stage. It's shown, maybe flip a diagram. Maybe that single fading.
So to close this one or? The paving?
Yeah, building bubble, projection, concept, no concept. This is one of the three paving patterns. So basically we have, in discussions with these guys, it was determined that we would prefer to use the real stone material. So there's a lot of stone banding, these are just conceptual patterns. So basically it's going to be from the sidewalk over there by Congress to the Mexican restaurant on the left. It'll be a series of banded rectilinear paving patterns.
There's an Indian restaurant left too.
There is.
No,
but that's-
Multicultural.
It's
It's on the right.
So-
Is an Indian restaurant, yes, right there,
Yes.
Shalimar.
Shallow.
Shalimar. So you can see that there's the three pergolas, and there's additional green space. So wherever there's a tree now, there's going to be more soil volume for the existing trees. So I tried to expand the curb edges of each one of those plantings. So the plantings are larger than they are now, and there's more plantings than there are now. So what you don't see is what's hard to see is there's like these dark things. Those are that's the furniture aspect.
Ah.
So there's furniture here. There's furniture that's going to be over here, and this is what we used to be the district that outdoor cafe for the
Yes.
district.
Yeah.
So these these yellow lines, because we can't have poles, we can't have cables that attach to the buildings. All the lights are going to be catenary lights, and we don't have them, probably circular lights. I like the circular lights, but so those yellow lines are the cables that go between vertical poles. Everywhere where there's an intersection of the line, there's going to be a vertical pole because we can't attach cables to the buildings. So
Why?
even though they're yellow, that doesn't mean they're the continuous band of light. So there's going to be the cable will have a light here and a light there.
You
So
won't see the cables, you'll see the light.
you'll see the light. So I don't have that light plan yet, but the cables highlight where the lights are going to be.
Yeah, so there's a question about why we can't connect to buildings.
It's there.
They're private buildings.
Structure.
We
But
don't-
have you asked them?
No, and
You don't need to.
the design hasn't evolved that much yet, right? So we're not planning, we have to plan that they say no. And then if they say yes, we might be able to simplify, but we haven't asked yet because the plan is still evolving. So until we kind of know what we want to do, we haven't got to that point. yet.
We have to make, that's a great answer. And we have to make sure that it works without the attachments to the building. So it's
There's also liability associated with attaching public infrastructure to private buildings. So, I mean.
Did you say liability or viability?
Liability.
Yeah.
We explored this
Got it.
in the commercial alley, if you recall.
Oh,
years ago,
yes.
And we're unable to do that because of the liability challenges.
The paving design poses potential for the project that we had talked about, so we can talk about that once you finish, Terrence. But that might be a way that this gets integrated.
So another drawing I'm going to show you, it's going to be these, everywhere you see that intersection, there's going to be a pole. So on those poles, I'm going to show you another idea that involves art opportunities. So Sean, if you go to, actually the paving pattern one, because there's different ways to do the paving pattern, and this is, we haven't settled on anything, so it's just kind of a concept.
One thing we have settled on is we want square patterns.
Right.
Because what happens if you have nice curvy patterns, you have sections of tile or stone that get really narrow and they break. And then they become very difficult to replace, and it becomes, you end up So from a maintenance standpoint, we want a robust infrastructure that looks really nice, that conveys, some permanence, but it's easy to maintain.
Yeah, so it's probably a variation of shades of gray. There's one below, so there's actually three here. So this is just kind of just to show you what we're thinking, not really, we haven't settled on anything. So it's just to show you that there are opportunities to, do some angled cuts, but they're not curved cuts that create this unruly paving pattern. So there's the C and A are actually very rectilinear based on the space. And this is a 4-foot pattern because the present awnings that those shop owners have, it comes out 4 feet from the building face, so that kind of mirrors that. So Sean, if you find the projection, yeah, that. So if you read, no, is that it? Well, that's not the, we can talk about that though. So,
You might as well, you brought it up.
Yeah. That's a tease.
yeah, so, right, no, stay with this.
Okay.
So this is the space, okay, this is where the stage is currently, and these are the existing crabapple trees and the honey locusts are
Looking out to the parking lot.
Yeah.
Looking at, oh,
back to the wall, looking out to the parking lot. So my impression of that space was like, I can't stand to look at this parking lot. And it has, the orientation has this great western orientation, so when the sun drops along the parking lot, the sun comes through. And it's really great in the winter because you get the low light coming through there. So the idea I had was, okay, I know glass is used everywhere in the world. We don't have glass sculptures or walls in America, here in Portsmouth so much, but so the original idea was to do a dalle de verre, which is big, thick hunks of glass that, that would be glued together. And there's a company down on Islington Street that does it, but it's, the square foot cost was $17,000 to $2,000. It's just, so I was like, okay, stick with the glass. And then the research brought me to this. There are lots of companies that do architectural panel glass, and they can do crazy colors. I mean, so the theme here is, it's really simple. It goes from, sea to mountain, but it goes, so that's why it's blue to green, but it could be, they have to be 32-inch wide panels, and they're probably mounted and secured on a steel frame that you can see the steel frame here. So it allows air and light to come underneath, and it discourages vagrancy right there. So you can't hide behind the wall, but the wall is going to be illuminated at night, and it's going to catch all sorts of great natural light.
Right, it'll catch natural light. There's a little bit of air gap underneath it, so it'll block some of the wind that comes up the corridor, is our thought. And then when we were brainstorming last week, I know Councilor Cook and I were talking months ago about how much sun there is. So
Yeah.
on one point, late in the season, the light is really nice coming through the glass wall and be really nice. In the summertime, that same sun is much higher, and the center part of the Vaughn Mall is like an oven in there.
Right.
So then we started looking at, instead of the shade structures that you and I had talked about a little bit, we started talking about, well, maybe we can create some of these like almost like pergola cantilever structures, and maybe they could become part of that glass wall so that it doesn't make it so shady that it's dark, but at the same time, it blocks some of that harsh sun that we get in July and August in there, and kind of get a multi-factor approach into one kind of.
Now, this has
Thanks.
great potential for what we've been talking about, and we have some money to give to it already.
So the glass wall would, it would have not a uniform height, so it would vary, so it'd be kind of interesting. And the colors that are out there are way more beautiful than this sketch, which gets kind of bland in the process of reproducing it. They're really unbelievably vibrant, and they're really cool. So you can have one panel with a color that transitions into another color, and then gradual transition from, it's 75 feet long. So there's like it's, like, I mean, it's, I don't know, 32 inches into 2.5 feet. So maybe there's 20 panels, or more than 20 panels, but there'd be different thicknesses. So there'd be different panel sizes, heights and thicknesses. And they would be glued together. And because it's glass, you'd probably have to have a tempered glass on one side of it. So to resist the shattering of it. But it's a light magnet, really, the glass.
This is such a perfect time to talk about what the idea was.
Can I just go to the
Could you
next?
One more.
Okay, one more slide, showing the one that has the art opportunity one. So there's a bunch of art opportunities that David mentioned.
To have here. Is it on this same email?
The one that's called projection.
There it
Okay,
is over
yeah.
on the left.
So, I don't know if in the bubble diagram, so if you have the mall on both ends, well, let's do this.
This is the Worth building.
So,
Where the
okay,
district-
so
District was there.
this is the district building. So this is where the seats were, you know,
Yeah.
their outdoor dining. So the idea here is to have these poles
That are holding the catenary lights.
that are holding the catenary lights. And in there is a camera, and you hire different artists to program what the image is that projected. So you have this thing way up in the air that's projecting an image on a blank wall. So there's the blank wall, and these are just my placeholder images. So there's 5 opportunities, 4, 3 on the district building. That's the Escape Monkey building. I don't
Yeah.
even know what building it
Yeah.
is.
Yep.
And then opposite, on the brick building, the opposite side of the district is the clothing shop.
Franklin Block.
The Franklin Block, but what's the name of the shop though? But there's a big hunk of wall there that you could have outside. So you could have 5
Spots.
5 spots where you had various video themed projections, and that could be rotating artists. So it's a really great opportunity. But what I was about to say was that if this is the arch, you know, this is Congress, and this is Shalom.
Shalom.
Sorry, I haven't eaten in a while. All the time. Anyway, so the other art opportunity is that I think all these kind of spaces need kind of threshold monuments. So you could have these vertical monuments, not as big as the arch, but you could have these monuments that were opportunities for somebody to design something that made you feel like, okay, now I'm going into this. Because the arch acknowledges Chestnut Street. So you have 2 below the arch and then 2 over there on Hanover Street. And those are opportunities for art. So there'd be kind of gateways, yeah.
Yeah.
So there'd be monuments on granite plinths, and there probably would have to be signage. Because there's a lot of vendors in that space. But, you know, I have ideas of what that should be, but that's not part of what
That's
we're doing
not part
here.
of this project. It's a future thing, but,
It's a future
Yeah.
thing.
but just to clarify, the projection and the glass would be part of the project. is
No,
that
not the
correct?
projections, the poles.
The poles would be, yes,
You would have to find an artist
but
to,
you'd have the.
The
you'd have
infrastructure.
The infrastructure,
the infrastructure is there.
and the glass wall is also part of the project, yes?
Aspirationally.
Aspirates for- So the floor, the paving, the lights, and the wall.
Okay,
So the,
So the floor, the ceiling and the wall, right? Is that what you call it?
yeah,
okay.
and the trees, of course, but,
Question.
yes.
So I know you had mentioned shades of gray, and I love me some gray, but what are other, not that I'm requesting, but I would curiously ask, what are other color options? Are there color options for the pavers?
Well, there's blacks and whites. There's the brick color. You know, we're trying not
That's
to
it.
do,
It's not, if it's artificial materials, if it's, you know, it's manufactured materials, this is the whole plethora of options.
But you're gonna use stone, natural?
we're trying to, correct.
At this level, preliminary level,
Good answer.
we're hoping to use natural stone.
Yeah.
Like they would in, you know.
Old
if they were-
timey.
If they're
Yeah.
doing it in other places, Europe, they would use natural.
New York City.
Yeah.
The one thing relative to colors that you just need to be aware of that there's a lot of traffic and restaurants and stuff that get, can color.
Yeah.
If you have a nice light color,
Yeah.
it gets gray and gets smeared, and then it's really difficult to get that stuff out of the material.
We learned that on Series Street.
Yeah.
Yes.
The only reason I ask is because you say you want people to come down there, and I'm just saying, I love gray, but it might not be the most welcoming
It's-
color.
So it's not gray like, it's not gray like concrete gray or even the cobblestone gray. It's more black and whitish. So it's not the kind of the dull gray.
It seems like there's other things that are
Yeah.
inviting,
You're-
so it sounds like
Yeah.
the whole space
Yeah, so
will be
the light-
inviting.
We're trying to make it a bright,
Yeah.
Yeah.
endearing space.
Yeah.
That it's like fun to just walk through and see stuff.
See stuff.
Yeah, and
Without-
the brick on Weinbaum's building is light yellow.
It's,
It's white. I mean, this is.
Oh, yeah, that.
It's great, but across the way where Underwood is, that's a yellow sod.
yeah.
All right. Yeah.
So I mean,
What
there
color
are
is-
other colors. What's that?
Silver.
Well, it's kind of
It's-
rusted looking
it's-
now. but it was yellow at one point.
Was.
So there's also that there's the opportunity for a lot of, there's fixed furniture and there's a lot of opportunity for freestanding furniture.
So two things. First, I think we do need an ordinance change. The last time we tried to do something like that to be able to project, but we've got plenty of time for that. I wonder if Nancy or Kate would describe the project that has come to us for the Vaughn Mall that might be integrated with what you're planning for the glass.
Yes, so I think, Peter, you know about the fundraiser that was brought to you guys several years ago about a rainbow crosswalk that was 86th or whatever, but we still have the funds for that, for some kind of inclusive LGBT, some kind of inclusive rainbow something public art. And so what we did, that landed on us after our committee was formed, that I believe $10,000 was put into our fund to do some sort of inclusive LGBTQ public art. So we brought together some stakeholders in the community and asked them, what do you want if not a crosswalk? These were not the people that raised the money. That person, it lives on the other side of the country now, and said, take the money, please do something with it, and we trust you. So this group of people, stakeholders in the community from that, that representatives of that community, cross-generational, sat with us in this room and came up with some concepts about like, this is the city of the open door, and are there some ways we can incorporate like coming out of the closet, city of the open door, welcoming all people. And in that vein, that conceptual vein of being a welcoming city, what are some of the most prominent locations in our city? Market Square, Prescott Park, Vaughn Mall, and they really, really liked the Vaughn Mall area because it's underutilized and it could be a place of belonging. And we knew that it was an area that is going to be revitalized. And so we asked Sean to reach out to you, and could we be part of the revitalization with this concept of an inclusive LGBTQ something as part of the revitalization, whether that's part of a lighting piece, a separate standalone piece, part of the infrastructure, you
And
know,
with the idea that the
yeah,
group is also willing to help raise some additional dollars. to
exactly.
make it happen.
Well, I would add that Chris is absolutely right. This glass wall lends itself to that
Sure does.
like
Mm.
perfectly.
Perfect.
I mean, a glass rainbow.
And-
front-
and-
Well, I don't want to.
Just the colors.
Rainbows, but the
Anything
the
that
col-
colors.
yeah, the colors are like right the same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
And the scale of it is really
Scale of it
done.
is-
And the idea of it being a gathering place, that was the other.
Yeah. Yeah, the stage is still there, and the stage is kind of the the epicenter of the space, because it's that gets the most sun, it's gonna have the, you know, pergola over it, and it's gonna, the glass wall is gonna be the backdrop for the stage. So it's a really good fit.
I
think it could
agree,
be
and
great.
although $10,000 is appreciated, you know, we're talking.
No, it's
No,
you
we
know,
know.
Well, you know, it's
No,
it's gonna be
the-
very expensive.
Yeah.
the committee, the group is very willing to
help raise
to
money.
help
Yeah,
raise
well,
some
that's
more
great.
funds.
I think, I mean,
This is a excuse me, this is a Portsmouth group?
Yeah.
I mean, it's our committee. I mean, it
Oh,
would be a,
the group
it
you're
would-
talking
No,
about is this.
But
They donated the money to
but-
us, so we
but
have. the money
members of
now.
the LBGT community that got together with, as Nancy described, are willing to help raise money for it, along with the contribution that we would make that's been given to us.
Yeah,
And-
I would hope that they would, you said it, that they would trust the design team to incorporate that theme without them wanting to like,
Well, they can't because it has to come through our committee.
okay.
It's not. But yes, the whole idea was that, they didn't want a literal representation, and that's why we didn't want to do a sidewalk like everybody else or a crosswalk, but something that would be appropriate for Portsmouth.
Yeah, this will be much more enduring than a crosswalk.
Right.
so I'm gonna just leave you with a little story. One of the members of the community went to Amsterdam where, what's the name of the sculpture in Copenhagen? Oh, is it Homo Man? It's just a big sculpture in Copenhagen of a gay person. And this person went when they were in high school. And they just never felt more welcome and in place, like welcome in a place in their life. And like, that's what we want people to feel. And that's just a sculpture of a person. It's not like incredibly literal. It's not like a giant rainbow. It's not like sparkles. It's not a unicorn. You know what I mean? It's just,
Yeah.
Something simple, like,
Yeah.
we talked about in Amsterdam, there's a pink triangle in one of
Yeah,
the
that's what it
clubs.
is.
It's a pink triangle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a pink triangle. And it's just inset in the papers. And it's not very big. And so I have a child who's LGBTQ, and when they found that, it was like, oh, this is about me and my
I think
people.
that's what it is. Yeah.
It's just this sense that, that I've been recognized here. People remember. And so I think that's the key.
Right.
Is
It doesn't
feeling
need
like-
to be literal,
Yeah.
but it needs to be recognized. You know, they need to recognize what it is.
So there's gonna be opportunities for additional art in this, as Dave and Terrence both said, but we're not wanting to overprogram it at the beginning. So I don't think, you know, this is the time to be starting to talk about this. So as we evolve, if the glass wall is something that seems to be in the right direction with you all, we can flesh that out a little bit and get a better handle on, you know, what that would entail. And if that fulfills the intent or the mindset of what you're thinking, then maybe that's great. But there are other places, you know, the entryway statues or.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we'll
Terrence had a
definitely
couple of ideas.
pull
that I
them
really
together.
liked, but they
Hey.
were like, they were more art.
No?
Yeah.
Not to be spoken here.
That's right, because it's not streetscape.
Uh-oh.
It was,
But I think it seems like for us, because we said we would pull people together to focus on one piece, as you said, it's gonna be expensive.
Yeah.
So to be able to do something.
do it
that-
right, to make.
do it right. To get started with something that is dramatic.
Yeah.
And holds the space, would be great.
I think the important factor is making sure that it is not easily damageable.
Oh,
So this is the critical piece. You know, the parking lot
Okay.
behind it that no one
well,
can
but there's another
random,
sketch where it's so,
you know.
if the glass wall sits like that in the parking, the cars, but, so there's a guardrail that's here and the cars actually come here, so you can. I have a sketch over there that has these ribbons of metal that are to protect any
Because of.
pickup truck or ladders
Yeah.
that would go beyond the guardrail, so these things would be mounted to the guardrail that would sit above and catch, you know, whatever protrusion was coming like that. So that, I mean, that came right out of these guys. The first-
I'll make it easy.
If we could,
Oh, I know, it's,
if we could show, like, Kate and Alyssa and I will pull together that group. If we could show them all of your concepts, and see if any of them resonate, like
Yeah.
the projections,
Projection or the
the
wall.
wall,
Yeah.
the gateway sculptures, you know, those might resonate differently with that group, and then we'll know.
And Terrence, do you have a non-literal idea in your head right now about what that glass wall could look like with rainbowish colors?
Well, that's it, except it's not, I
Not
mean,
vibrant.
basically, it's not vibrant because it's
Yeah.
just this, anyway, but it's just me doing a concept sketch from
Okay,
blue to green.
okay,
So
But-
ocean to the mountains.
It's really abstract and it could be really bright colors, which
okay.
just, I think the flow from one color to ending up with another color with a lot of yellows in between. So it just fits with the
Yeah,
concept you've mentioned really well. Until I talk to the manufacturer more, it's about what's possible and meet with their designers and see what's possible, because they're big glass panels, 32 by, I think they're 32 by 84 is the biggest one. So that's
17
Yeah.
tall.
So,
Plus it's 3 feet off the ground.
Yeah, we're not, right, Dave is correct, so the frame is 24 to 30 inches off the ground, so the airflow, and then they have, say that's 3 feet, so then you go from, so it's 4 to 6 feet of glass. Right, no, 4 to 7 feet of glass, no, 4 to 5 feet of glass. Wow.
Which one is it?
That one.
I should say before, but I took the time.
Thank you,
Oh, yeah.
thank you.
The glass is between, say, 3.5 and 5.5 feet off of this metal stand. So the glass sits like that on a metal stand. And the air flows underneath. And that, I wouldn't have known about the vagrants until Dave mentioned the fact that, we used to have people sleeping right there. So I was like,
Oh, yeah, no,
okay.
they're there.
Yeah, so these guys, that's what's great about working with these guys. It's like, well, I was putting it on a concrete wall. It's like, no, it gotta be a metal frame so people, the air movement and people are just dissuaded from laying on the ground there. And there'll be more ground cover planting, so it's not gonna have the really dull brown look at, all that mulch. I don't really like mulch at all. So
so as a next step,
instead,
maybe Terrence meeting with the stakeholder group that you pull together.
Oh, do you want to meet with our group?
And ideas, I assume, would generate from that about what this could
So
look like.
so Terrence is a consultant working for us. And, there's a cost associated with doing that. So
No,
if the committee would like to make the request, we will consider it and see how we can accommodate.
that's the problem.
Very well said.
All right. Would it be okay if we just shared the images? And
Absolutely.
yeah, why don't we just do that?
And I'm sure we can arrange a time to
Later.
meet, we anticipate coming back and working with you all
Yeah.
multiple times.
Yeah.
I just don't want to open the door.
We might not be
Except
ready
for
for
creative
Terrence just yet.
personalities.
Yeah.
But I do think this seems to fulfill a couple of things and bring it together. And I'm a big fan in public art and art in general of less is more with some of these things. So getting started with something that has
Quality
principles.
materials, quality materials.
Yeah.
I can't stress enough. We had those nice granite crosswalks in Market Square, but they weren't, if you remember back when they were built and then they broke up and then we had to take them out. Now there's plastic crosswalks there now, which are terrible. But the point is durability needs to be rugged. It needs to be, and we want to be able to drive our sidewalk tractors over it and not have it.
Right. So we should leave you with one complaint that we had that I don't think we've told you all about.
No,
either.
we're done.
Did you hear about that? That we had a complaint about the public art that was installed in front of 51 Islington Street, which was was your lay down work for the sewer work. That somebody thought that
All the pipes.
the pipes and stuff that you had.
I had to hold it.
Better,
Yeah.
So Peter, you can claim that as your contribution to
So I've said all along that the work we
Temporary.
do is art, so we shouldn't have.
That's pretty great. I just have a quick curiosity question. Do the businesses that are in Von Mall understand that this stuff is going to be happening and have you guys
So
spoke?
we're about to have a public meeting. We actually wanted to meet with you guys first.
Okay.
So we wanted to kind of, figure out what we schedule, public meeting, so we were in the right direction.
Oh, maybe
We're
we'll.
about to schedule.
Thank
That would
you.
be great. It would be great for some of us to come to that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let us
You
know
are
when that is.
Absolutely welcome.
Yeah.
Sure.
Is that scheduled, the public meeting?
Yeah.
Larger than the Von Mall merchant store, right?
It's gonna be. a
Yeah,
public meeting.
public.
Oh.
Will the Von Mall merchants be like
Invited.
invited somehow personally so they understand that this meeting is important for
Dan
them
is
to attend?
Von Mall merchant.
Ah,
Yes,
oh,
yes,
okay.
and invite
There you
those
go.
neighbors.
There, so they.
I get the
so
benefit
we-
from that afternoon sun every day when it's flaring. No.
Is
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
that scheduled yet?
No, no.
No.
Okay,
We'll inform everybody.
okay,
Yeah.
Make sure you-
Okay.
Sean will be
I'll help
perfectly
out.
aware.
okay.
I
I
just
get-
have a quick question on the timeline. It wouldn't start, you wouldn't even be talking about this for a year because you won't see the work you're doing over the
Month.
next year.
Month, let's go back stuff. So, we have to go through a public process. And then we have to finish the public process, and then we have to bid work. Okay, so it takes, nowadays, it takes, I don't know, 6, 7 years to bid work. It takes about 4 months to bid work successfully, and sometimes, and it really depends on time of year. Because you gotta, contractors are so busy that you have to get on their schedule, so oftentimes, if we wanna start a job in September, we really need to bid the work in March, so we can get on their schedule. And we can order the materials that we need, right, so that when we're ready to do the job, we can go in expeditiously go in there and get it done. And not like start and then wait for materials, right? So. We really want to get through the public process between now and the end of the summer. We kind of really have a pretty good direction that we can then put together our construction drawings. In the fall. Bid the work in December, January. So that we can, and then we can figure out what's going on. So the timeline with the construction, the heavy construction. Is that, this fall, we're going into Von Mall. The following spring, we're going into Commerce Street. So the other thing is that we have to be cognizant of all the time, is that we don't want to drive our merchants out of business. So I don't want too much stuff going on all at once down there. And where we have to kind of do, Congress Street is underground, interactive with Von Mall. Von Mall is where everything from downtown goes down to Von Mall, so we have to build that, and then we build Congress Street. And everything's interactive, so when we finish the Von Mall in December, everything's gonna be patched together underneath Congress Street, waiting for spring, to then do Congress Street. So that's why I'm thinking in my mind that we're gonna do this stuff in the fall.
Design stuff.
Design.
Design.
Okay.
So we kind of want to get the design done.
So time,
So
where
that
this is
in-
timely.
So that a
Yeah.
year from this fall. 6.
Assuming we have resources.
Assuming we have resources. Start.
I'm
putting the
voting for it.
together.
I'm supporting funding for this, sir.
That's one vote.
Got one vote.
That's good.
Okay, so that's kind of where we're at. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good. So thank you, guys. This is-
Yeah.
Thank you.
I
But
think
this
it's
was
really
very
good.
detailed and
Very good.
informative.
Yeah. And
Thank you
this-
for having us. Appreciate it.
Yes.
I think
Absolutely.
we might have a good concept here. So
Yeah.
we'll leave it to you to get in touch, to get some drawings or some, or maybe
We
just
just grab it
these.
from you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
can I share
Okay.
this with this group?
Yeah, there was one where for some reason it was outdated relative to the. Is that one? One thing. You know, it's that drawing. But
The only. I'm hesitant to say yes, just because it hasn't gone public.
Our meetings aren't public. The meeting,
It's
our
a
subcommittee
subcommittee.
meeting is not a
So
public
this-
meeting.
this- But this is a public meeting, isn't it?
This,
Yeah.
yes,
Well, this is,
this
yeah.
is,
So this is out now.
yeah.
It'll be it's been videoed, so it'll be online.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
So
right.
it doesn't really matter then.
That's right.
Okay.
A lot of people watch it.
Yeah.
Of what you
All
want.
two people who watch this.
It doesn't matter because
I know.
it's gonna be, I mean, these are concepts and
Right.
we
Yeah.
have
I'm
to
gonna
go through
remind
these
people that they're
concepts and be like,
concepts, they're
so,
concepts. they're
but I would
adapted.
like to, work with Nancy and Counselor Cook to get the folks that want to be involved, get them connected sooner than later.
Yeah.
So we can.
And have them come to the public meeting as well. So that
Yeah,
they
yeah.
Understand what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah. Yeah, I'll send that email out to them tonight. We'll schedule our next meeting ASAP.
Right.
And if, you have donors that can come up with hundreds of thousands of millions.
You
of
never
dollars.
know, right?
You
never know.
Hopes out. You never know.
Or, okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
It's great.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks, Terrence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have two things we really
Let's do it. Yeah.
have to accomplish.
Yep.
We need to look at the portrait of Liz Forkel, and we do need to go into executive session. So I think I'm going to suggest that we might do the executive session first.
That's good. More
understandable as we thought So we need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Mara. And so
So what am I?
pick us out.
I'll take us out. So stop recording.
It's exciting. Wild.
Pause or stop? Okay, come back.
Chris, you must close the door.
Oh, probably is.
Yeah.
From my.